they did think I was going to die. You know, they said that to my parents. You know, the next 24 hours are vital if we're not sure how this is gonna pan out. But I think it's important that has happened, and I am here, and now I've got to I've got to change that into a positive, and help other people to not go through the same. So I'm their hindsight. That's what I would say. You know, they can look at me and think, it would never happen to me, though, that he would never do that to me. How many times did I say that? You know, he'll never hit me. He's never hit me before. I was in a relationship for just under 7 years with somebody who drank an awful lot and did a lot of drugs. And I always felt that it would never happen to me. I would never be the victim of violence. And I didn't appreciate that the situation I was in was controlling. I felt that I was in control. So now being removed from the situation after what happened and looking at it with fresh eyes, I can see that there is a lot more to the relationship that I wasn't aware of. And I think it's important to make people aware that there's help out there that can kind of help guide you at the time in a nice way rather than insulting you and you getting defensive, because that's what I used to do a lot. At Christmas, I would go to my parents on Christmas Day and Matt would be there and they'd say, oh, what did you get? And I would reel off this list of things that I wanted that I never got. In 7 years, I never got a Christmas card. I never got a birthday card. I never got a present. But to everybody else, they would think that he bought me a Michael Kors watch or the car or everything that I had, I bought, and I made out that he did. Because I really believed in my head that if I believed that, then no one would be able to trip me up. So if you're telling a fib, you've got to kind of believe it, because if someone tries to catch you out and you can't remember what you've said. So I'd kind of find it easier to believe the stories that I told. Therefore, I seemed really happy, and I'd go to work and, you know, oh yeah, Matt, you know, we went to the cinema last night, and, you know, yes, I may have gone to the cinema, but he would have to have a beer to sit in that cinema with me, and I would have had to have bought him something to bribe him to go with me. You know, it was never from the goodness of his heart, but I would sugarcoat that and say, oh yes, but we went to the cinema and we had a really lovely time. We went for dinner. I paid, but we went for dinner, and it was, so that's why I always seemed to everybody else on the outside that my relationship was perfect, too perfect, but perfect, because I just spun myself these little stories that I chose to believe. When I was in that bubble, I never realised how controlling Matt was. I used to be the person that begged him back. So it was never violent. He'd never hit me before. Yes, he drank and he would smash something if he didn't get his own way. He'd put a fist through a wall. And as uncomfortable as that made me feel, I'd think, oh yes, but he's always hit an inanimate object. He's never hit me. So that's just aggression, and that's his way of dealing with it. And I'd say, I need you to leave. I don't feel comfortable. I need you to go. And he'd quite, you know, happily say, okay, well, I'll pack a bag and I'll leave. Then he'd leave, wouldn't answer a phone, wouldn't text, and then I'd find myself ringing, you know, please come back, I'm worried, you know, I'm worried that you're sleeping on a park bench, because that was his control. He made me feel guilty. He made me feel sorry for him. And then he knew every time he'd come back, I would glaze over the situation that had just happened. I wouldn't necessarily say, you know, you made me feel uncomfortable because you just put your fist through the wall. I would feel like I would be falling over myself to make him feel make him feel better about the situation that had happened. Your friends will help you and your family will help you. It's just that you've got to accept that what happens to you isn't anything to be ashamed of. It's something that it happens quite a lot. And yeah, people will help you. You just need to be honest. There's campaigns, Women's Aid, domestic violence, websites that you can look at. But I always found that staying safe in a relationship wasn't something that people would know was available. So if you're in a relationship and you feel, for example, on the particular day that my attack happened, I felt I had like a a sick feeling. I had this kind of gut instinct as such, that something wasn't right. He wasn't right that day. He was either too attentive or just completely different, and it made me feel uncomfortable. If I'd have known that there were numbers I could have called, rather than trying to deal with it on my own and going home and sort of thinking I was safe at home, I would have been able to have got some advice, which would have been really helpful, because maybe the situation wouldn't have happened. Essex Police were really good, for my family as well. I think that's important to remember, that this doesn't just affect the victim. It has a really big effect on their family, because they feel quite useless as well. They feel like they should have, hindsight, they should have done something. They should have removed you from that situation. But I think they probably did. I just didn't listen. And so Essex Police have been really supportive to my family as well.